Has Ferrari just found a trick that everyone was looking for and no one could figure it out in years? Or are we facing the greatest technical illusion of the new era of Formula One? Because what has been leaked before Miami is not a simple improvement. It is a concept that, if it works as they say within the paddock, could break the balance that defines the performance of all teams in 2026. A front wing capable of doing something that seemed impossible, give you more grip and curves without sacrificing straight line speed, and that changes absolutely everything. But here comes the most important thing. Ferrari has been secretly working on this system for months, testing it, perfecting it, waiting for the exact moment to launch it, and that moment is Miami. The question is, are we about to see the beginning of a new era, or Ferrari's biggest technical risk in years? The starting point of this whole story is not Miami. It is the problem that Ferrari has had for years, and that has defined its performance even when they had a competitive car. The inability to find a perfect balance between downforce and straight-line efficiency, a conflict that not only affects Ferrari, but the entire modern Formula One. Because each team, absolutely all, has had to choose either more grip in the curve, sacrificing top speed, or more speed on the straight, losing stability and performance in technical areas. And in that game of compromises is where championships are won or lost. Ferrari experienced it firsthand with extremely fast cars in qualifying but inconsistent in the race, with performance windows that were too narrow, and with behavior that changed radically depending on the circuit, the temperature, or even the wind, which meant that the car's real potential was never constantly exploited to the fullest. And although in 2020 they managed to take a step forward at a strategic level and consistency as a team, the technical limit was still there, invisible but decisive. This is where the 2026 regulation change comes in, a key point that many are underestimating, but which in reality completely redefines the rules of the game. The removal of traditional DRS not only changes the way overtaking, it changes the aerodynamic design philosophy, because teams now have more freedom to develop active systems that were previously restricted. And Ferrari has been one of the first to understand that this change is not a limitation, it is an opportunity. While other teams have continued to evolve more conservative concepts, Ferrari decided to go in a much more aggressive direction, betting on a solution that does not seek to improve a specific area, but rather directly attack the root problem, the dynamic management of air flow from the most critical point of the car, the front wing. Because it all starts there, every millimeter of air that enters the car defines what happens later on the floor, in the side pods, in the diffuser, absolutely everything. And for months, without making noise, without showing any cards, Ferrari has been developing this concept in parallel, accumulating data, testing configurations in tire tests, validating theories in the wind tunnel, building a solution that was not designed to appear little by little, but to break out at the exact moment. That moment ends up being Miami, but not by chance, but by context. The cancellation of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia generated something that in Formula One is pure gold: time. 5 weeks without races that Ferrari used to do something that is normally impossible in the middle of the season, group multiple updates into a single package, advancing its own development schedule and transforming what was going to be a progressive evolution into a massive performance jump. That is why within the paddock there is already talk of Miami as a reset of a championship. Because we are not facing just another race on the calendar, we are facing the point where Ferrari decides to show its true card, where it stops reacting and begins to impose conditions. And at the center of everything, as a key piece of this change, is that front wing that not only represents a technical improvement, but a new way of understanding how Formula One should function in this new era. The key moment comes when we stop talking about theory and begin to understand why this front wing can break the championship in practice, because it is one thing to promise performance and quite another to change the rules of the game on the track. Ferrari has not designed this system just to go faster. It has designed it to control something that, until now, no team has been able to completely master: the aerodynamic transition of the car between curve and straight, that moment where you normally lose time no matter what, because the car is never at its optimal point for both situations at the same time. This is where the real secret of this spoiler comes in. With active angle of attack control, the SF26 can adapt in real time to each section of the circuit, but the important thing is not just that it changes, it's how it does it. It is not a sudden system, it is not a more load or less load switch, it is a progressive transition that maintains the aerodynamic flow stable while the car changes configuration, and that detail is what can make enormous differences in lap time. Because in Formula One, losing stability in a transition means micro-corrections by the driver, loss of confidence, tire degradation, and Ferrari seems to have reduced that problem to a minimum. This means that the driver can attack the corner entry more, maintain a higher minimum speed, and exit with better traction, while on the straight the car is released aerodynamically without penalty. Is a gain in all critical phases of the return. But here's where this gets even deeper, because the benefit doesn't stop at the front wing, it's amplified throughout the car. By better managing the air from the start, Ferrari is feeding the ground with a much cleaner and more consistent flow, which stabilizes the ground effect, reduces unexpected pressure losses, and makes the car much more predictable for the driver. And when a car is predictable, the driver can push it to the limit. This is exactly what Ferrari needs, especially with drivers who rely on front-end confidence to maximize performance, because a small change in that field can translate into tenths per lap, every lap. Furthermore, this system fits perfectly with the type of Miami circuit, where you have very differentiated areas. Long straights where you need maximum efficiency, and technical sectors where downforce is everything. Is practically the ideal setting to exploit this concept, which turns this debut into something much more than a simple introduction. It is a direct test by fire. However, here is the other side of the story, risk. Because the more complex a system is, the more variables you introduce. Reliability, synchronization, behavior under different conditions, everything has to work perfectly. And in an environment like Formula One, where every thousand counts, any mistake can turn a theoretical advantage into a disaster on the track. And there's another factor that many are overlooking. If Ferrari has truly found that performance window, it's not just about being faster, it's about forcing others to react. But reacting means redesigning concepts, investing resources, changing technical directions, and that is not done from one race to another. That is why what is at stake in Miami is not just an improvement, it is a possible breakdown of the competitive balance. If it works, Ferrari will not only gain performance, it will gain time. And in Formula One, time is the only thing you can't easily get back. And this is where everything converges, because after understanding the problem, after analyzing the solution, we reach the point that really defines whether we are facing a revolution or a lost opportunity: track execution. Miami is not just any race for Ferrari. It is the moment where everything they have built in silence for months is exposed for the first time under real pressure, with traffic, with degradation, with changing conditions, with everything that you cannot replicate either in the simulator or in the wind tunnel. And that's where everything is decided. If this front wing works as expected, the impact will be immediate, but not only in terms of pure performance, but in something much more important: consistency. Because Ferrari doesn't need to be the fastest car on a lap. It needs to be the most complete throughout the weekend, and this concept aims directly at that, to eliminate the peaks and dips in performance that have penalized them so much. Imagine a scenario where Ferrari can attack in qualifying with maximum load, but without paying the price on the straight, and then in the race manage tires better than anyone else because the car is more stable, more predictable, more efficient. That's not just an improvement, it's a structural advantage over its rivals. But if it works, the real domino effect begins later. Because the moment Ferrari proves that this concept is real, all the teams are going to go into reaction mode. And here's the key: not everyone can react the same. Some will have to adapt pieces, others redesign entire philosophies. And in a season where development is limited by budget and time, that can create a gap that remains throughout the season. And that is where Miami can become that point that years later is remembered as the moment where everything changed. But there is also the other scenario, the one that Ferrari cannot afford. Because if this system does not work as expected, if there are correlation problems between simulation and track, if the behavior is not consistent, or if reliability comes into play, all that development compressed into a single package can turn against you. There would be no room for immediate reaction. There would be no progressive evolution. It would be a direct blow to the heart of their season. And that is what makes this moment so critical, because Ferrari is not playing to improve, is playing to get it right. There is no middle ground. Either this front wing redefines the balance of Formula One in 2026, or it becomes one of the biggest technical risks we have seen in recent years. And the answer starts in Miami. And in the end, it all comes down to a single idea. Ferrari is not introducing one more improvement, it is betting on changing the rules of the game at the most critical moment of the season. This front wing is not important only for what it promises in terms of performance, but for what it represents: a break with the traditional way of understanding aerodynamics in Formula One, an attempt to eliminate the major technical compromise that has limited all teams for years. If it works, it won't just be an advantage, it will be a reference. A point from which everyone else will have to rebuild their concepts, adapt, react, and in that process, Ferrari will gain the most valuable thing in this sport: time. But if he fails, the blow will be just as big. Because they have concentrated weeks of development, they have advanced its evolution, they have bet everything on a moment and a key piece. There's no safety net, there is no middle path. It is a move that can lead them to lead the season or compromise it for Miami, and that's what makes this leaked secret so powerful. It's not just a technical innovation, it's a statement of intent. Ferrari has decided to stop chasing, to try to dominate. The question is no longer whether this spoiler is revolutionary. The question is whether we are about to witness the beginning of a new era in Formula One, or the limit of how far we can risk in search of perfection. Recommendation: expand the first block by further reinforcing the initial promise and connecting it directly to this conclusion to close the script with greater impact and narrative coherence. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.